Hey guys, good morning. It is Tuesday, April the 28th at 11 o'clock in the morning, and it's been a while since I have given you guys an update on what's going on with the SBA loans, particularly the PPP. So, as you guys know, the second round of funding has come through. Most of our clients were funded with the first round, or at least it's been approved by SBA. You may not have received your funds yet, but should shortly. So, what I want to talk about today is some breaking news really on the PPP loans. So let me switch over here to this is just posted. So the Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin come out this morning and said that every PPP loan over $2 million will automatically, they will undertake a full review, which basically means they're going to audit any loan over $2 million. So there's also been some other developments. I want to just run through these real quick, and then I will talk about what all this means to you guys. SBA updated their FAQs last week. Let's see here. This one, 31, is the one that's probably caused the most hubbub. So a lot of large companies got the PPP when it was not really necessary that they get it. You guys have probably heard on the news that these large publicly traded companies have gotten the PPPs and starting to pay that back. They're getting a bad rap for getting this money when it really was intended to go to small businesses. There was a loophole in the bill that allowed businesses with more than 500 employees to get the PPP when originally it was supposed to be employers with less than 500 employees. So these large companies are getting this money when it was intended for the small businesses. So because of the outrage, SBA come and issued this FAQ. I believe it was on Thursday. Yes, it was on Thursday they updated this. Okay, so do businesses owned by large companies with adequate sources of liquidity to support the business's ongoing operations qualify for a PPP? Basically, in a nutshell, what the answer says is yes, you can get a PPP, but you have to certify. Let me just read this to you. The current economic uncertainty makes this loan request necessary to support the ongoing operations of the applicant. So you have to say that because we have current economic uncertainty, I need this PPP. So for you guys, all of my small businesses, of course there was economic uncertainty. Now for these large businesses, there was also economic uncertainty. So they checked the box, yes, then they got this money. Now SBA is coming back and saying, no, we didn't intend for you to get this money. You got to pay it back by May 7th, or basically you're going to be in trouble. So now the question becomes, if these large companies are getting in trouble for getting this PPP, or any of the small companies going to get in trouble for the PPP, are we still going to get this forgiven as long as we use these funds appropriately? So I believe we're still going to get it forgiven. We're going to dive off into that in just a minute, but I wanted to bring up this, that the SBA has come out with this FAQ. Now this FAQ right here is specifically for large companies and publicly owned entities, publicly traded entities, okay? So this does not apply to any of you guys. Do not think that you have to pay back your PPP by May the 7th. I'm just bringing this up and wanted to talk about some of the questions that I'm getting from my clients. Also, some local lenders are telling clients that you just need to get the money, stick it in an account, and don't touch it if you don't need it, and then pay it back at the end of the period. No, that's not the purpose of the PPP. That is not correct. I think that was a misinterpretation between the lender and the client. You're supposed to use these funds for the intended purposes, okay? But before we get into that, I also wanted to share something else. This is a Wall Street Journal article that came out the middle of last week. It's from Ron Johnson, and he is a Republican senator from Wisconsin. And I'm hoping that he's out there in left field as far as his interpretation of the loan forgiveness, PPP loan forgiveness. What he's calling for is some really strict guidelines on getting these loans forgiven. You know, SBA intended for this to be a grant for most people. It starts off as a loan. As you know, if you receive the PPP, before you get it from the bank, you have to go to the bank and sign loan documents because it is a loan. And then at the end of the 8-week cover period, you're going to get an application to apply and get that loan forgiven. And at that point, it becomes a grant. So we have not seen that forgiveness application yet, but I have a feeling, and most people think, that the application is probably going to be pretty extensive because SBA has 8 weeks to come up with that application for forgiveness. Now, hopefully, they release that application before this 8-week period is over, but according to the track record of SBA, I wouldn't put any bets on it. Okay, so in the original intent of the law, it did not say anywhere in there that you had to actually prove an economic, you had to prove a decrease in sales or economic damage, financial damage, in order to get this loan forgiven. That was not in the law. That was not in any of the regs, the FAQs, any of the borrower or lender information, anywhere in it that you had to prove that your sales have decreased over a period of time. Now, what this gentleman here is saying, that in order to get the loan forgiven, he is suggesting that there be legislation drawn up that there was a decrease in sales for 2020. Now, he's talking about the entire year of 2020, that your sales would have to be decreased by a certain percentage in order to get the loan forgiven. I'm not going to dive off into all the reasons why. This would be an absolutely terrible thing if it passed, but I just wanted to bring this to your attention because a lot of you guys are seeing this out there. I want to tell you real quick, just one example, why this would be a bad idea, okay? First off, if they're just looking at an 8-week period of the cover period, so from the time you get your loan proceeds for 8 weeks, that's your 8-week time that you have to spend these PPP loan proceeds. Now, if you have to prove that your sales have decreased during this period of time, that may be harder to do because I don't believe our area in particular has seen the full trickle-down effect. For example, I'm thinking about construction clients. I have several construction clients. And right now, cash is okay because these jobs were started in January and February, but no one's starting construction jobs right now because of the economic downturn. So they're not going to see the trickle-down effect until July, August, and September. That's when they're going to see a slowdown. So they went ahead and got these funds because there is definite economic uncertainty. Even though during this 8-week period, sales may be fine, it's probably not going to be fine for the rest of the year. So I was telling a banker friend of mine, I said, well, if we have to prove a decrease in sales in order to get this loan forgiven, we need to spread it out for the whole year of 2019. Like this guy here is suggesting, the banker said, no, absolutely not, because banks do not want this loan on the books. This 1% loan is terrible for banks. And he said, we want this forgiven. So we want it, like as soon as this 8-week period is over, we want this forgiveness application and get this thing completely off the books. So there is a conflict of interest here. Okay, so now that I've sort of set the stage for a lot of the concerns of myself and some of my business owner clients that have reached out to me, now I want to tell you what my opinion is and my approach. Well, my opinion is that legislation is not going to go anywhere. It shouldn't. It better not. If there's more rumors of that going somewhere, we should be reaching out to legislators. If the federal government tells us that we can have this loan on small businesses and that it will be forgiven as long as it's used appropriately, we are moving mountains to make for sure that you guys use these funds correctly and it is forgiven. Now, if we get up to this end of the 8-week period and the federal government decides to go in and change the rules on us and this is not forgiven, and then you guys have went back and hired back all of these employees or used the funds correctly and then it's not forgiven, that's basically bait and switch, and I foresee a lot of lawsuits. There would be a huge outcry from the small business community. So, my advice, first, don't panic. None of my clients fall into these categories. One, we have no publicly traded entities. So you guys are not publicly traded. Two, we did not do a loan application for anyone with a loan more than $2 million. The maximum amount of any loans were under $500,000. So you're not going to have an automatic audit of your loan forgiveness. You're not publicly traded. You don't have to pay this money back by May 7th. Now, I have some banker friends that tend to think that basically the noose is slowly tightening from, they started off at publicly traded entities and they are going down to $2 million loans, and hopefully they don't keep going down even further, okay? But my advice is now, assume the federal government is going to stay true to their word, that they are not going to change the rules after the fact and basically catch everyone in a trap, okay? Second, use the money appropriately, okay? Now, most of you guys, we have gone through these PPP loan forgiveness calculations. We have projected out what you need to use the money on, how you need to use it, how many full-time equivalent employees. If you haven't heard from us yet, going through all of these details and telling you exactly how many hours you need to have on payroll, then you will be hearing from us within the next 48 hours, okay, as we wrap these up, because we know this is crucial and we're spending our energy and our focus on this right now. Now, you need to go ahead and hire back your employees in order to get your FTEs back up to what it's supposed to be. And you'll know exactly what that is whenever you get the PPP loan forgiveness projections calculation from us, okay? Now, if you need to issue extra bonuses to your existing employees in order to use these funds and not have to pay some back, my suggestion is at this point, wait until closer to the end of the 8-week period to do that. Two reasons. One, by then we should have better guidelines and we would know for sure if you're going to get this forgiven or not. Two, as of right now, we are still unclear as to whether the PPP loan can be used for the withholdings from an employee's check. So to err on the side of caution, when we worked up these PPP loan forgiveness, we are basically adding back the Social Security, Medicare, and federal income tax withheld from the employee's checks. Now, hopefully, the SBA is going to come in and say, no, just like we did on the front end when we calculated the maximum amount of the PPP loan, you can include the Social Security, Medicare, and federal income tax withheld as part of the payroll cost. So if that is true, then that's going to help our clients a lot, and you won't need to issue those bonuses at the end of the 8-week cover period. So let's hold off on that, and you're going to reach out to us about 6 weeks into your cover period so we can make for sure that you're on track with your projection, and hopefully by then we will know for sure if the taxes withheld is included in that payroll cost, okay? I believe it's very important to keep your documentation of your expenses. That is in the text of the actual law, that no loan will be forgiven without that documentation. Another question that I've been asked is it incurred or paid expenses? For example, a client called this morning and said, okay, I'm making my first payroll after I received my PPP. It's a 2-week payroll period. 2 days of that fell before I received my PPP. So I received my PPP on April 13th. So I have the 11th and 12th payroll that I'm paying this week. Do I need to write 2 separate checks? My answer to that is no. Don't write 2 separate checks. I and bankers I know agree that it is expenses paid during that period. So you don't have to prorate your payroll by day. You don't have to prorate your utilities by day. That is too much of a burden on small employers. One banker gave me a pretty good piece of advice, and this is the last thing I'm going to say to you guys. I'm trying to keep this short and sweet. But he said, we are telling clients, just make for sure that you don't take this extra income and blow it on anything frivolous during this period. That would look really bad. So if your sales are staying pretty consistent during this 8-week period and you've got this PPP in order to pay your payroll, you may feel like you have some extra income. His exact words were, don't go buy a ski boat, okay? So that's all I have for you guys today, and I will stay in touch with you guys. Be safe, be healthy. Blessings.